Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become the competent leader and take your business or your life to the next level. Today, I have with me Tony Curl, and let me tell you a little bit about Tony. Tony spent over 30 years in operational leadership positions in retail sector, leading teams at as large as 300 members and managing revenue up to 300 million. During his operational leadership career, he discovered a passion for developing others, and this ignited the desire to become a professional coach. Now, an accredited coach with over 10 years of professional coaching experience, Tony has helped hundreds of leaders at all levels to achieve their goals. He has 20 plus years of facilitation in training, coaching, and mentoring in organizations, and the host of the Today's Leader podcast. I chose a theme that I hope you love as much as I do, and it is motivating the working dead. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Tony Curl. Tony, welcome.
Well, thank you, Vicki. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for having me. The Today's Leader is on a little bit of a hiatus at the moment, so it's good to be back behind the microphone and looking down the barrel of the camera.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And, everybody needs a break now and then, but they can look at your past episodes to get an idea also of all of your awesomeness. But The Walking Dead is, as we mentioned before we started, was filmed here in Atlanta. And I thought this was perfect because, if we were meeting in a person, I would ask the audience to all raise their hand if they've ever worked with The Working Dead. Because I think all of us that have at least been in corporate have had that experience where there was one or a whole team of Working Dead. So I thought this is great for us to talk about, because as leaders, as team leads, as supervisor managers, we have to find ways to motivate our teams, to make them not only want to come to work, but understand the value and the benefit that they bring to our organizations by just being there, that they have value, they have worth. And I think sometimes as our leaders sometimes make us just feel like we're a butt in a seat and really not adding value. So I'm anxious to hear about what you have to say. We always start with an easy question. And as you just indicated a little bit with your opening, please tell us where you call home.
I'm in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia, and it's a beautiful morning here at the moment. A little bit chilly. I think winter's trying to have a second crack at us at the moment. It doesn't get overly cold here, but we would call 11 degrees Celsius cold. And I'm one of these people that gets up at some ungodly hour in the morning and goes for a walk every morning just to start the day well. And we feel it when it's 11 degrees Celsius. I'm not sure of the conversion back to Fahrenheit, but
don't ask me. I have no idea. I have a good friend who's from England, and she always reminds me whenever we go travel anywhere where it's Celsius. All right. So I think that we should start, because your bio was really brief. I always like people to share their story of what their journey was like. You didn't I think, probably come out of the womb as an entrepreneur, as a coach. So take us a little bit on that journey of where you were to get to here.
Yeah, with pleasure. I had a 30-year retail career and in operational leadership, so site and multi-site leadership predominantly. I started my career back when the judgment of a leader was how many hours that they work. So if my car was in the car park before others, I was going to have a good day, and if it was there after others had left, but I was being considered that I was a hardworking, ethical sort of a manager, and of course things have changed a great deal since then. Thankfully.
Yeah.
But that was the way that as a young leader in the retail industry, you were judged. So I worked through 30 years of operational leadership, and I joined a company 1999 called Bunnings Warehouse here in Australia. And Bunnings were the very first organisation that really got the leadership aspect of what it is that we do, how to inspire people to take your business to the next level. And I started doing leadership workshops through them, and it was just eye-opening, and it was a real awareness process. So I spent 12 years with Bunnings Warehouse. And during that time, I found that while still successful as an operational and site leader, I was becoming more satisfied with seeing the lights go on in people's eyes and seeing them progress in their careers.
Yeah.
So I started to develop myself. I started to go through the certification process with Maxwell Leadership, and I became a certified Maxwell coach. I then left Bunnings to go join another organization because for the title predominantly, and that was one of the biggest mistakes that I ever made, because title doesn't keep you satisfied. And I went into a organization that was vastly different from the one I'd come from, where leadership was key, development of your people was key, and it was a real tick and flick, do and tell style. And I lasted 19 months. And at the end of that period, I said, I need to move on, and I need to take the step and go out on my own and teach leadership as I will help leaders be better. And that was the first step for me. And in 2013, I started Think and Grow Business, and it's been a journey. COVID really knocked us around, unfortunately, as I'm sure it did with many others. But 10 years of helping, supporting people, whether they're small business, whether they're in organizations. And it's just a pleasure in my eyes to be able to wake up every morning and just have care for people, and the development of people is your number one focus and priority. And I certainly enjoy that.
Awesome. Yes. There, I think that for a lot of us, having experienced a not a great manager or leader or mentor has really propelled us to be better. We learn from others, not always the good things, but we we see, oh, well, I am never going to do that. And so while it might have been frustrating and annoying and made you not want to go to work every day, it did teach us lessons if we listened to those lessons.
Yes, very much so. The last organization I worked with, I reported to what I can only describe as the worst leader of my career. And he was very political. He was very focused on looking good. He was very centered in on himself, and it was just a real challenge to work with a person like that. And when my focus was very definitely on the development of my people as best as I possibly could, and to create an environment and a culture where people felt valued. So which was really tough when I was not feeling valued within an organization. So yeah, I took a lot of learnings from that period about myself and how I responded. And there were some things that if I had my time again, I'd go back and do. There are things that I advise my clients about during that time that, you know, maybe in hindsight, I maybe would have tried a different tact. But yeah, very clearly, he was just not the right leader for me. He was the right leader for other people who were that style of leader who just wanted to get ahead. But yeah, certainly not for me.
And I think everybody should take note of what he just said, is that he was not the right leader for him, and that but he was possibly the right leader for others. And I think oftentimes we forget about that. Whenever you promote someone into leadership, you need to be aware that that isn't just because they're great at a certain skill or tactic or strategy, because you have to lead people.
Yeah.
And you have to change, and so it's work. It isn't where you come in and shut the door of the office and just assign work to people and think that they're going to survive and stay. And so talk about how your leadership style, we want to talk about the working dead and motivation. So as you got into a place that was right fit for you, how do you what are some steps that you take to assess the situation and know what you should use for those individuals on your team, knowing that it may be more than one person, and so you may need several styles to be able to motivate them?
Yeah, I think the biggest learning that I've ever had with leadership is that, you know, and even recently, I'll share a quick story. I went to work in an organization, and the person leading that organization was really clear with me, saying they believe that leadership is natural. You're either a natural leader or you're not. And to be quite honest, I find that really challenging, because one of the biggest learnings that I've ever had as a leader is that leadership can be developed, and we do need to be conscious and we do need to be intentional about how we lead our team, and we need to invest in our team. And I see so many leaders that don't understand those three concepts. Leadership isn't easy. A lot of natural leaders fall over because, yes, they may be naturally outgoing and they build networks and all of this stuff, but when the push comes to shove, leaders are expected to get results, and we are expected to get results through our people. And if we're not investing in our people with an intention and being conscious about how we work with them and how we develop the rapport and the relationships and even communication, how we communicate with them individually, if we're not conscious about that, we are going to be more likely to fail than succeed. And so intention, conscious, and investing are three really key things that leaders need to be thinking about every day.
And I think too, whenever you have a situation where, you know, that investing and intention, we have a society now around the world where our teams are not in the room next to us, in the building next to us, they're around the world. And when I started my business, I was also called back to do a project for the company I retired from, and it was all remote. I never, in the year and a half I worked on the project, met the person that I was reporting to in person. Never.
Wow.
And so the challenge that I'd like for you to just talk a little bit about the challenges that and opportunities that as a leader you have with remote teams, and how it isn't you can't do things the way you used to do when everybody was in the office with you. And and let's talk about trust and integrity as well.
It's a real balancing act, Vicki, in my mind, because I recently completed a contract with a major global insurance company, for example, and they had a very much a hybrid workplace policy. And I think social engagement is really important for people, not just leaders, but for people to be socially connected with a community or with an organization. And it can be challenging for a leader to have that social engagement with people that you may never see in the office. There were some people within this organization that I was on this project for 9 months and I never met them other than through the lens of a webcam. And it is a real balancing act because, yeah, you do want to have trust, integrity, and in all of our dealings. And you do want to, it's nowadays it's more about progress and, getting the results. And we can do that anywhere. But to be intentional, once again, that word intentional keeps popping up, doesn't it? But to be intentional on how we engage with those people, because in many ways, it leads to greater challenges if we aren't careful. So if there's promotions going around in a workplace, for example, or there's people stepping up, often the people that are close or that are in the office are the ones that are close to mind for a leader. And the person that is working from home potentially may not be as close or they're in that line of sight. So when we potentially promote that person who's always in the office and always engaged and socially connected, the person who's working from home who may be producing better results is not going to feel valued. They are going to ask themselves the question. So it really is for a leader, once again, that the word is intention, to have that intention to socially connect and to be valued, to make that person feel valued in however we do that. Now, there is the balancing act I talk about is that some people will see connection as potentially being nosy, interruptive, and micromanaging. So I don't want to spend all day on a Zoom call. Of course you don't. But you do want to have that. You still want to follow the same principles that we do if someone was in the office, being intentional about our one-on-ones, asking about their goals, their growth. All of those things can still be done with a remote person just as easily as what it can be done with the person that's always in the office. So balancing act, intention, and just having an understanding that that person isn't as socially connected as the others within your team who may be in the office or may be in the office more. So part of a leader's role is, how do I make that person, what can I do to support that person to feel socially connected with the team? So I hope that gives some tips.
And it really is, if you were in the office and you would be walking around and pass in the hall the people that you work with, maybe say, let's go have break together or lunch together. So the challenge for you, or the opportunity, is to, when you think, okay, well, this is Monday morning, I kind of need to see how everybody's doing, how the week went, or maybe it's a Friday, maybe it's a Wednesday, but one of those days, pick up the phone and give them a call, or say, hey, let's have a quick Zoom over coffee or something, just to try to make that relationship building process be as organic as it can be, without saying, okay, every Tuesday we're going to have a status update. And that takes away the social piece that I think that you're talking about. And it makes it not feel like I'm just trying to get to know you and I care about you. It's like, well, I want to see, I'm catching up on, or I'm checking up on you.
Yeah, I care about you. Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting. I was coaching a leader in Melbourne during the pandemic, and initially, when the work from home, and Melbourne was the most lockdown city in Australia, and they had long periods of lockdown. So when work from home initially happened, this leader was really receptive, engaging with his team, looking at things like Friday afternoon drinks over Zoom and all of this stuff. So really engaged in the process of keeping them engaged. But what I noticed with him, and what I had to help with coaching, is as the time went on And as this leader was going back into the office himself, there was a real lack of trust starting to develop and a real concept of micromanaging. So he reverted very much back to his type, and his type was along the lines of, they can't do it as well as I do, so I'll just do it. So I'll overload myself as a leader. And he reverted back to that, but in a remote situation. And that created this real distrust and bitterness towards the people that were choosing to work from home. And once again, coaching that person was actually quite difficult during those stages, because the awareness that that was happening was the first stage of the project, and then trying to work out how to create that harmony within the team and that social connection while still being satisfied that they weren't bludging while they're at home. So it's interesting how that happened for that particular leader, and I'm sure it happened with many, and I'm sure that many leaders still have that belief that they're sitting at home on the couch eating potato chips, watching Netflix instead of working, and
all day.
you just so it is a balancing act, and you do need to have that trust, and you do need to have the intention to build engagement.
I always look at the pandemic as a blessing, and I, in the company that I worked with, they had it was 2007, I guess, or no, 2003, they started doing remote work from home for a pilot for it. So I was in the pilot, and they said, well, you can't take your work from home on a Friday or a Monday, because that means you're doing a long weekend. And if you have a meeting, you need to come into the office. You can't take it from home. And so there was a lack of trust there. But it was the interesting thing that I found were two interesting things. One, I found I was far more productive at home because I didn't have people walking into my desk, my cubicle all the time, or interrupting me. And I started to work right away as soon as I got up. And I worked, and my teams were all over the world. So I had people in Asia, so in Australia. So I would be working late at night, and it just got where all of my project management skills had to come into play, and schedule time where I would be taking a walk or leaving my desk, not eating at my desk, things like that. So I wouldn't work 24/7. But there were other people who asked to be taken out of the program because of the social aspect, that they could not stand not having other people in their day. And so then when the pandemic came, it was where everybody had this. And I worried about those people that I knew that were probably experiencing that isolation that was really difficult for them. And so as a manager of those people, if you didn't take time to build relationships with your team and understand that these people may need you to be more available to them, you probably would not keep those people.
The interesting way you talked about the pandemic and how many things were thrust upon us, and I agree with you so much that as a leader, it really opened the awareness channels, and it changed many leaders for the better, and it changed some leaders for the worse. So, but it made sure one of the big blessings that I would see from the pandemic is it helped leaders understand their role in being adaptable and flexible. And it also helped leaders see their role in the need for crisis leadership and what that looks like. And but by the same token, I saw so many leaders totally unsure of what it looked like and trying to be this stoic figure while internally they were crumbling themselves. So it just opened up so much. But and hopefully we'll look back on that as a real catalyst for leadership shift, I guess. So
Yeah. And there are some people that were hired maybe in 2019, 2020, 2021 because of, you know, the circumstances, and have no experience to working in what pre-2019 would call a normal workday.
yeah.
And so there's another challenge for the leadership. How do you acclimate those folks, or do you go back to all full-time in the office? Do you do the company that I work for has still, interestingly, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in the office, and Monday and Friday most people chose to take off remote from home, and they allow that. I thought that was hilarious. But anyhow, but you really have to decide what is best for our company. And it may be hybrid. It may be, I don't know if anybody ever is going to go back to full-time, everybody in the office again.
Yeah, it's interesting here in Australia because every time a company or an organization has that decree that everyone's got to be back in the office by a set amount of time, and even if it's a hybrid work role or what have you, it seems to make headlines. So I think the reality is that hybrid working has certainly, it's now the norm. People expect the ability to be able to work from home. So at the moment, I'm doing some work within a global food processing company, and they have a bit of a policy in relation to you can work from home as needed, but your preference is always to be in the office. Now, what that preference actually means is culturally, there's probably not a preference to working from home. The preference is you are in the office.
Yeah.
Once again, that's a cultural thing, and it's part of the project that I'm involved with that to how do we drive that. But there've been headlines where companies have said you now have to be in the office, and the backlash from people who have now come to enjoy working from home, enjoy the flexibility, feel that they're more productive, has been quite large. And I think for a lot of organizations, it's how do you frame that in a context that people will say, yes, I understand the need. So whether it's meetings needing to be in the office, whether it's that social engagement side, whether it's social connection, or do we just bite the bullet and say, well, let's use remote and let's get rid of these expensive real estate that we need to rent. So there's a lot of decisions, I guess, sitting there within organizations, but you're quite right. A lot of people now expect it as a norm and don't see any need or reason why they would have to go into the office.
For sure. So time has flown by. We covered quite a lot. Probably have to have you come back and we'll talk a little bit about anatomy of a leader and mentorship. I definitely want to cover those, but we'll just go into the rapid fire. One of the rapid fire statements I actually already asked you, and that was about bad leaders. So we covered that. But you're the first Australian trained and certified in psychoneuroactualization. And that's a groundbreaking coaching and influencing program for by the well-known thought leader Steve Maraboli. I have no idea what that is, and so I couldn't let you go by without at least whetting our interest and maybe having another segment on that one too.
Steve's a very interesting and motivating gentleman who I connected with back in 2013 after he's got a number of books out, and he really is a different style of thought leader. He really does challenge the accepted norm. And I guess psychoneuroactualization is something that he developed. And it really, the key word in that is the actualization. So it's really about understanding ourselves. It's about putting those thoughts and actions into a visionary sort of a process and then putting it into action. So the real key steps is it is about understanding our own the neuroscience. So doing the work with Steve, it was really about understanding the way we operate and then having the cognition to put it into action. So it's one thing, it's one thing to say, I'm going to do something. It's another thing completely to go out and do it. So everyone can say, I'm going to write a book. And in many cases, going into a group of friends, for example, this is a really good example, hopefully. If I went into my group of friends and said, I'm going to write a book, and they all said, wow, that's amazing, Tony, that's awesome. The chances of me then writing that book are probably reduced because I've already got that kick, that dopamine kick from just saying, wow, I'm going to write a book and everyone wants me to write a book. And it actually diminishes a little bit of that ability for me to put it into action. And a lot of people thrive off that, but a lot of people thrive off the fact I'm going to do something, and they get the response back from people. And then they've got no chance ever of doing it because they've already had that response that kicks us into gear to get it into action. So psychoneuroactualization really works with trying to set that visionary process within a person and then set the scene for action and get them working into the steps. And, you know, some people actually need a cheer squad, so to speak, to cheer them on, and that helps them in their journey, while others just need to keep it within themselves and just start making the steps. So it's a really interesting field of study. I'm indebted for Steve for making me aware of it. And one of the key things that he teaches is that, and I see this so much with coaching, and I see this so much with coaches, I guess, is that if I'm working with someone, and I liken it to if a person feels that they're in a hole or that they've ground to a halt in what it is that they want to do.
Right.
I need to fully understand where they are. So if they're in a hole, I'm jumping in that hole with them so I can fully understand where it is that they are. And then I'm going to be that support figure to help them determine how to get out of that hole. What I see with a lot of coaches is that they're standing around the edge of the hole saying, hold on to my hand, I know the way forward. And, you know, maybe it's Australians, but we don't like people telling us what to do. So
have you met Americans?
So that will work with some people who actually require that. But for most people, for it to be lasting and sustainable change, I want them to come up with the answers. Now, I'm going to help guide them, and I'm going to pick up on some things, and I'm going to ask them the right questions. But I'm in there as well, immersed in that situation. And if I can't help them get out, we're going to stay there, and we can't have that. For me to be successful, we just can't have that. So we need to get out of there, and we do that in a way with the person that I'm coaching, coming up with the right solutions to get out of there so that they can have that lasting and sustainable change. And it's their idea. At the end of the day, it then becomes, I did it. Thanks for your support. Whereas a lot of coaches, once again, say, I helped this person go X amount of wherever they were going. So it's a completely different, in many ways, a completely different way to look at things. But I love it. I love getting in that hole, and I love finding out exactly where we are, and let's work together, and hopefully you'll navigate the way to get us out. So,
and I think it makes so much sense because it validates for them that you can help them, because it's not, you're in the trenches with them, and you're discovering with them, and you're probably trying things that may not work, and how you react to that failure is also demonstrating to them.
It's really about trying to influence them in the way that that may be the best fit for the solution. And you know, when it works is that when you've been planting the seeds of influence. And then one day they come in and say, guess what I did? I woke up in the middle of the night and I had this great idea. And all of a sudden I started doing something. And you're sitting back saying, I've been planting that seed for the last 3 sessions. And not that you tell them that, because it's their idea and that's the goal. They're excited. But inside, I'm saying, yes, finally, that influence started to get through. So, and that's the beauty of the process.
Yeah, all coaches need to remember that it's okay for it to be their idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we wives know that we have to make sure that. All right, it's time now for me to share my screen so that you can get contact information for Tony, as I'm sure you will want to learn more of what he does and how he can help you. So for those that are listening, as I remind every time, if you haven't done so, go grab a paper and pencil. I'm going to give the website information now orally, and you can write that down. If you don't get it, if you're not in a position to write something down, all of this information will be on my YouTube channel as well as my website, findyourleadershipconfidence.com. So the website is https://thinkandgrowbusiness.com.au. Again, thinkandgrowbusiness.com.au. He's on Facebook at Tony Curl. LinkedIn is Tony Curl. Instagram is Tony Curl. And Twitter is Tony Curl. I'm sorry, Twitter, he threw a wrench in there. He's Tony Coach Curl. So you almost had it easy, but we had to throw in that. And, you know, Twitter's now X anyways.
Yeah.
All the way. We won't go into that. All right. And YouTube, just search for Tony Curl. And I'm going to turn it over to Tony to talk to you about his different services he has, what you can find on the website and his social media and YouTube.
Well, thanks, Vicki. And it's a great opportunity just to talk with people about what it is that I do. I'm in a very, I would say, lucky position. For the next 2 years, I've got a very good, solid contract with an organisation, that food manufacturing organisation, and that's a cultural journey that we'll be taking on. So a lot of the services that I used to be able to do for organisations, for example, I'm probably not in a position to do that, but I am taking on individuals and who just want to be better, who just want to take that next step. The name of my podcast is Today's Leader, and it's about building tomorrow's best leaders today. And if that fits within your psyche, and if that's where you want to be, if you want to be the very best leader you can be today and building for tomorrow, come and talk to me. We can work through things like our leadership skills. We can work through leadership mindset. Emotional intelligence is just one of the biggest things a leader needs to be aware of. So all of those little aspects around how you can be a better leader, if you truly want to be the best leader that you can possibly be, just reach out and have a chat. I'm not for everyone. But I'm certainly very proud of the work that I've done with individuals, you know. And one of the biggest areas that I'm seeing at the moment is navigating the politics of organizations. And sometimes, and once again, I've used this word so much today, it's about intention. And we can navigate successfully without losing our authentic self. And I think, once again, if that's a challenge that a lot of leaders face, reach out, let's have a chat, and let's see if I'm the person that can help you navigate what's going on while remaining true and authentic to yourself.
Fantastic. Well, it has been a pleasure talking to you today. We covered so much ground on leadership, and, and I love that you talked about emotional intelligence. One of the leadership tracks that I teach is leading with your heart, your head, and your hands. And empathy and emotional intelligence are key to that, that track.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And that fits so well with the anatomy of the leader that I speak to
Awesome.
too, Vicki. So we do need to
we're
reconnect
going to have
and
to
get
do
back on.
another session. We'll
Yeah.
definitely do that. All right. So as always, I remind everyone that life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.